Hey everyone, it's Willow from OutCenter, and on this episode of No Silly Questions, we are continuing our short series on conversion therapy, what it is, what it looks like, and all of the harms that it causes to LGBT people. No Silly Questions is all about LGBT, FAQs, and fast facts. There are no silly questions, so ask yours at outcenter.org/questions. In our last video, we talked about conversion therapy and introduced the acronym SOGICE, SOGICE, which stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Change Efforts. That's the larger umbrella under which conversion therapy falls. And by change efforts, what we mean are efforts to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity to fit straight cisgender norms. We're going to talk about the effects of conversion therapy and SOGICE, what it actually does to people. I'm going to share some real stories about survivors, which include details about trauma and depression and harm. We're going to talk honestly about these things. So if you need to pause, take a break, or come back later, that's okay. And if you need support at any point, we'll be sure to link some in the description below. Let's start with Kate McCobb's story. Kate didn't sign up for electroshock therapy or some secret boot camp or exorcisms or things like that. No, she went to a licensed clinician, a therapist, in 2006 because she was struggling emotionally, like so many of us do. She was 25 years old. She expected help. But instead, her therapist fixated on the fact that she was a lesbian, even though she hadn't gone to therapy for that. He told her that she could be rewired to reveal her true self, a straight woman, and somehow gain congruence here and in other places, other aspects of her life. He pushed her into individual and group sessions where she was told to become more feminine, to change how she presented herself with the clothes that she wore, and to date men. Kate's sexual orientation was framed as an illness that she could cure with enough effort and obedience. By the time she saw an affirming therapist and learned that every major medical and mental health association considers this treatment unethical and harmful, she was already filled with years of shame and blame. Thankfully, Kate took legal action, and this came with the validation of her community and other support, but the harms of conversion therapy aren't solved by a legal settlement. Now let's talk about Matthew Shurka. When he was 16, his dad found out that he was gay. This came partially as a result after Matthew was beaten up on the street as a hate crime. And so at just 16 years old, Matthew began conversion therapy. Part of Matthew's treatment was being told to avoid feminine influences. And so he was forced to undergo family separation, cut off from his mother and sisters for years. On the inside, Matthew described extreme anxiety and growing hopelessness. He said he reached a point of self-harm because he couldn't see himself changing. It was impossible. And after 5 years of conversion therapy, he quit. He eventually found his way out and now advocates against conversion therapy across the United States. Conversion practices also target trans and gender expansive people. I recommend checking out the Trevor Project's brand new series called Sharing Space, which is about survivors' stories. These survivors share a common thread. They all endured forced attempts to change them, but obviously that change didn't take place. And then they were pushed into clinical depression, which led to years of shame and suicidality. Survivors talk about learning a sense of built-in self-hatred. These are not outliers. These are representative stories. They line up with what the research is finding. As we mentioned in the last video, the results of conversion therapy are not change. People don't become straight and cisgender. No, what does happen is that people exposed to conversion practices are more likely to experience clinical depression, more likely to show PTSD symptoms, nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance. They're almost twice as likely to commit suicide compared to LGBT people who were not subjected to conversion practices. It makes it much more difficult to learn healthy relationships and healthy relationships to others. The cause of that is not being gay. The cause of that is people who are not okay with people who are gay and forcing them to try to change. trust and vulnerability are hard to relearn after all of that. It can lead to crises of faith. Some people enjoy having a sense of spirituality about them, but if their religious institutions are not accepting and harmful, this can lead to its own type of spiritual trauma. Conversion therapy can lead to sexual dysfunction or fear and numbness around sexual intimacy or shame about one's own body. And of course, there's often a monetary impact in that conversion therapy itself can cost a lot of money. But care and recovery from conversion therapy also costs a lot too. You can imagine trying to recover from these harmful, traumatic experiences could cost a lot in medications and seeing psychologists and all of the things that come with that. So what helps instead? Let's talk about preventative and protective factors for LGBT people. So the very first thing is non-directive therapy that is affirming of clients. Non-directive therapy means that clinicians are not trying to force their worldview or their perception of good results onto the client. That involves setting a client up for success by being open and competent regarding LGBTQ identity and needs. Another protective factor is family acceptance. This is a big one for LGBT youth. See, family acceptance significantly lowers suicide risk for people under 18. And acceptance is not mere tolerance. Acceptance is allowing kids to explore themselves and their identities. That's the very basic stuff, like using folks' pronouns, allowing people to experiment with clothing styles, who they date, for instance. This is all a part of protecting people from harm. Community and peer support is also important. We are often at our best when we can be around other people in the community. So for younger folks, that could be a GSA, a Gender and Sexuality Alliance at a school. For folks that are out of those school years, there are often LGBT centers like OutCenter that allow folks to find connection or community or groups. It's important for us not to normalize conversion therapy as just sort of a difference in philosophy about treatment options. No, it's harmful and abusive, and it's not something clinicians should be practicing. Okay, so that's been some real stories about the harms of conversion therapy. If you've been subjected to SOGICE or conversion practices, it's important to find alternative sources of help in understanding who you are. One place to begin would be OutCenter's resources. If you go to outcenter.org/directory, we have a list of folks who we've checked out, and they have proven themselves to be affirming of LGBT people. That includes healthcare services and counseling services, as well as some great third places to find other queer folks. If you're looking for crisis support, check out the Trevor Project at thetrevorproject.org. See, everybody deserves to get affirming care from the beginning. It's actually really exciting and beautiful to be an LGBT person. So don't settle for anything less than that understanding of who you are. You don't need to listen to people that are more in love with their particular ideology than about actual clinical care for you. So if you're a parent, double check if your providers are LGBT affirming. If they're not, go somewhere else that can support your kids. And affirming therapy is going to be the best place to explore those things. So thanks for joining us on this second part of our conversion therapy series on No Silly Questions. We'll be back to you with more in the coming weeks as well. Conversion therapy is such an important topic, and we want to keep doing what we can to prevent it here in Michigan and across the world for that matter. But talking about what's within our backyards. So if you want to help us continue that work, we would love it if you would support us. Just go to outcenter.org/donate. And we'd also love it if you would share this video with your friends on Facebook, on Instagram, across social media, or emails or text messages. It really, really helps us, and we really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your support.